This is episode 14 of season 4 of Mardukite TV. It's also part 4 of a mini-series called Necronomicon Revelations, which is essentially based on our book, 9 Gates of the Kingdom of Shadows, or else the material can be found in our large anthology, Necronomicon Anunnaki Legacy. Information on our materials is actually available at Mardukite.com or NecroGate.com. What we've been discussing in this series is essentially the background information and history of the Simon Necronomicon, which is essentially like the benchmark. When most people refer to the Necronomicon, they are often referring to the Simon Necronomicon. In the more fantasy genre and niches, people refer to it from H.P. Lovecraft's work. So we were talking about the 1970s. We were talking about the publication of a material of that caliber in the 1970s. In terms of the design, you know, one of the things which has contributed to this kind of left-hand perception of the work is this kind of chthonic presentation of the book as, you know, shrouded in dark and gloom, because what you actually find is this chthonic artwork on the cover and this presentation with, you know, dread and horror and of course it being presented as the most dangerous book on the planet and the most dangerous sorcerer's black book, things of this nature. This has all kind of contributed to the global mass consciousness perception of something called the Necronomicon. So with the artwork, like on the cover, in Dead Names, Simon writes actually that he would have preferred a much more simplified cover. This is something they actually established in their 2008 hardcover edition, which basically was the cloth-bound edition had the familiar kind of quasi-pentagram symbol on it, and the leather-bound edition had the same. The cloth-bound edition had the title across the front, and the leather-bound edition just had the symbol. So clearly we see the reasoning why for that. That was actually Simon's preference. You know, in some ways, the hype is justified. The work for its time was certainly monumental, and it remains a cornerstone of the paradigm today. It remains almost the benchmark in which things of that tradition are based, because outside of this Mardukite revival that several hundred people now have been participating in, there's very little, like even in the modern New Age today, that is actually going back to the Anunnaki traditions, the Mesopotamian, the Sumerian, the Babylonian. There's very little that are looking to this as a living philosophy, as a way of understanding our creation and our universe. I mean, we see things today like ancient aliens and these things on TV, and people see these documentaries, and they seem to make sense, and a lot of people are starting to form this understanding of this. But if that be the case, it changes many things. It changes our perception of many things versus like what most people have been taught, like in formal schools and whatnot. So you can't, as a society, we can't just look the other way when it comes to what we can understand in terms of the technology, in terms of the way in which systems and traditions and religions have been formed, and the separation seen on the planet today. There's a lot to be gained from this understanding that is beyond what like most people would consider with magic, like you know, a love spell or you know, calling a deity into a triangle to evoke an apparition. There's things within this that are far and beyond this conventional idea of magic and occultism. Another element too often overlooked in the arrival of the Simon Necronomicon is its place in a change, chronologically, time-wise, in a change in human consciousness. This is actually not only monumental. This is people disregard the idea that it was actually intentional and an integral part of a larger picture where what people would consider spiritual forces basically directing the course of many events in recent past. Among these, there's so many profound ventures in the 1970s that really bridged the 60s to the 80s, and these visions and manifestations that I would never have conceived of prior. The music changed, the media changed, the very colors being perceived in the world virtually changed. They became more real and yet surreal, and yet wholly artificial. The technological age was kind of counterbalanced with this extreme sense of fantasy and spiritual occultism that a lot will remember kind of was pushed out in the 80s into the mainstream. And it was a necessary program to be followed to kind of temper with the rise of the electronic gods, those which have been kind of raised to supremacy by these the human creations. So feeling that the old ones have left them, the humans have felt this overwhelming need to raise another in its place. This time seemingly by their own creation, I think. So not until these kind of enthusiasts of Lovecraftian and Necronomicon readers and stuff started getting together with this kind of science fiction and Sitchin-esque circles in the late 1970s that really the mainstream population outside of the orders, like the Golden Dawn, the OTO, were kind of given this chance to understand what's kind of already been in the underground for thousands of years, and it's essentially the existence and nature of the Anunnaki. So, a lot of the controversy, as far as I can tell, dealing with the Simonian work is, mainly surrounding its presentation as the H.P. Lovecraft Necronomicon, and further as this dreaded tome that holds the power from the start based on this supernatural claims with its production and the typesetters being plagued on by rats and whatnot. But things of this nature do little to affect the content of the work. The ideas being brought forth again was that the book was dangerous. The debate about rats and factories, it seems so trite compared to the bigger picture, and it really is it really that bizarre at that? I mean, we're talking about Manhattan, right? It's rats. I'm sure. So the book might expose you to psychological forces which you cannot cope. That's not necessarily an empty boast either. If you're not ready to face the reality that everything you think you know about your world is a sham, a clever deception by alien forces, then yeah, indeed, steer clear of the Necronomicon in all of its forms.